If you know what it's like to feel exhausted, to feel frustrated because you were trying to get someone to understand your point of view. You know you love them, you know you want the relationship to work, but they just seem like they don't understand where they went wrong, where they contributed to the problem. That is what it's like being in a relationship with someone who has narcissistic traits or just has a toxic personality. In this episode, we're going to talk about why do narcissists or even just people with toxic personality traits, why do they refuse to accept when they're wrong? They refuse to take fault for anything. I'm going to explain to you why they're doing that. But if you know me, if you're not new here, you know I don't only want to just give you information, but I want to equip you with what you need so that you can have peace. Because dealing with difficult people like this disrupts your peace completely. So if you do happen to be new here, welcome. My name is Naila Abdullah. I'm a mental health therapist turned toxic relationship coach, and I help women all over the world be able to heal and move on from toxic or narcissistic relationships. So one of the reasons that people who have narcissistic traits or just a toxic personality, they don't want to admit their fault is because the reality of it is that some personalities cannot handle accountability, right? They have a very fragile ego. Your ego is your self-image, your self-confidence, your view of yourself. And any time that someone challenges them to make them look at themselves, reflect themselves, and if they have to admit that they did something wrong, that to you, it might seem like, okay, yes, I did do something wrong. It might seem simple to you. But some types of personalities, and it's not only narcissists, right? Just certain types of personalities, they really struggle with accountability. They really struggle with admitting that I did something wrong. It's a major blow to their ego. It really hurts their self-image and their confidence. So to avoid that pain, they simply choose to avoid all accountability. Now, with that said, that does not mean you have to excuse that. We all have things that we have to work on. Every single human being, right? So just because someone has a certain personality flaw or personality disorder or whatever it may be, it's not an excuse. And as I said before, I don't only want to give you information, but I want you to leave. Anytime you interact with me, I want people to be able to leave with, okay, what do I do next? What is the solution to this? Because I don't believe in being stuck in difficult situations. We need to look for solution. So one of the things you have to be careful with when you are in these types of relationships with people who cannot take accountability, what starts to happen is that you start to condition yourself, and they're starting to condition you. You're going along with it, right? Because that's human nature. We try to do things that will avoid pain and difficulty, right? So as you are in a relationship like this, they start to mold you into someone else. So maybe you started off being someone who is very communicative. You don't mind expressing yourself. You don't mind having difficult conversations. But over time, that frustration, that exhaustion, feeling drained because you're trying to get someone to understand a point, that drains you, and it starts to mold you into someone who doesn't even want to speak up anymore, right? You are afraid to set boundaries because a very simple, what should be a simple conversation that might involve some self-reflection on your part and on their part, because they have made it so difficult for you to communicate in that way. Now you start to condition yourself to be quiet, right? Or even if you do open up your mouth and you do try to say something, you're not able to communicate as effectively because you know it's going to lead to an argument. You know it's going to lead to something much bigger than it needs to be. And this is a big mistake, right? As we go through this journey of life, yes, different situations are going to change us, but we don't want to change the parts of us that are healthy, right? And being able to communicate, being able to set boundaries is a healthy part of you. So what you want to make sure is that you're not in an environment and relationships around people and situations that's going to condition you to change that positive characteristic about yourself. The second reason why people with narcissistic or toxic traits never admit their fault is because they love to gaslight you and frustrate you. If you're not familiar with the term gaslighting, it's basically trying to twist reality. Something happens, they say something, you say something, whatever it is, something happens. You know it happened, you heard it, you saw it, you experienced it, and then they come and tell you, no, that's not what happened. No, that's not the way it happened, right? That is a form of manipulation, and that can be very frustrating. And this might be difficult to believe if you're new to this type of information, but they love to frustrate. Okay, while you love peace, while you want, just a healthy relationship, a healthy environment, they love to be able to press people's buttons. They love to be able to trigger people, to provoke people, right? So by not admitting their role in a conflict or in a situation, by not admitting their fault, this is a way that they get to press your buttons. And to explain a little bit further of why they like to do that, this is a form of control, right? Control can look different, right, in different ways. But one way of controlling people is being able to press their buttons, being able to control their emotions, whether it's going in a good direction or a bad direction, right? In most cases with these types of people, it is a bad direction. So they want to be able to frustrate you, to gaslight you. It is fulfilling for them. And I know it sounds crazy, but unfortunately there are people, and I'm gonna say this very clearly, because this is a major key in being able to heal from these types of relationships, right? And be able to form new relationships in the future, is to understand, one, to accept, two, that's a major part, accept that there are people with certain personality types that love to provoke, they love to manipulate, they love to frustrate, they love to see you on edge. That is fulfilling for them. Okay, so what is the solution to that? What I want you to leave away with from this point, right, that they love to frustrate you and gaslight you, one of the reasons they don't like to accept their own faults, is that you have to now start to condition yourself. Healing is about a mindset shift, right? Healing is about a mindset shift. You have to start shifting your mindset to say, I am going to believe my truth, whether you agree with me or not. I don't need your validation, whether it's the toxic and narcissistic person that you're dealing with, whether it's people around you saying, yeah, it's not that bad, whatever it is. You have to now start to condition yourself to be okay with people not agreeing with your point of view. You have to be okay with people not seeing things the way that you see it. And as time goes on, you will be able to tailor that, right? If you're in a healthy situation, right, and that comes with healing, if you're in a healthy situation, you're okay with saying, okay, maybe you're okay with doubting your point of view or your perspective, because you know that person is safe. When you realize someone is not safe, and if you're not even sure, if you doubt it, go on the side of you're not safe, right? Be okay with the person not validating your point of view, because you're not dealing with a healthy, safe person. Healing is more than just leaving a relationship. That is just the tip of the iceberg. There's so much to unpack. There's so much to relearn. And that is something that I teach in my program, the Relationship Detox. What women learn, one of the things they learn is to rebuild their confidence, right? Again, it's about mindset shifts. So I talk about different things. Women learn different things in that program. But pertaining to what we just spoke about, one of the things they learn is, how do I rebuild my confidence? How do I get confident again in the way that I view things, the way that I handle things, right? This is all a part of healing. This is all a part of that mindset shift that needs to happen. The third reason a toxic or narcissistic person may not want to admit their fault is because now they feel forced to change their behavior, right? If you tell me I'm doing something wrong and I accept and acknowledge it, but I don't change the behavior, now I'm blatantly doing the wrong thing, right? They don't want to accept that. And one of the important things for you to understand in the dynamics of a relationship with someone who has a toxic, destructive, or narcissistic personality, their goal is not a healthy relationship, right? Your goal is a healthy, long-term relationship. Their goal is control. Their goal is to dominate, right? So in their mind, their perspective is, if speaking as if I'm one of them, right? If I admit that I'm wrong, I'm giving them leverage. They don't want to give you, in their mind, you're having the upper hand now, right? That is the perspective from someone who's looking at a relationship as a competition. Who can have the most power, right? They're not looking at it as how do we come together to be healthy and whole, right? So they don't want to give you the upper hand. If I admit my fault, I'm giving them the upper hand. They don't want to give you the upper hand. Being in relationships with these types of people is exhausting. And sometimes people believe that if I just get out of the relationship, if I am out for long enough, that everything will go back to normal. But unfortunately, that stress that you have endured, whether it be during the relationship and even after the relationship, they still have a way of pressing your buttons, of triggering you, of provoking you, of leaving you drained. It is more than just leaving, right? There are certain things that we have to unlearn. There's certain things that we have to process. There's certain things, certain shifts that we have to make in ourselves. Certain things that we have learned, we spoke about that earlier, about how they condition you, their behavior condition how you communicate, how you handle certain situations. So there are things that we have to unpack. There are things that we have to let go of. There are things that we have to rebuild, and that doesn't just happen with time. So if you are someone that understands the importance of healing, the importance of the steps that it takes to heal, I invite you to go in the description box below to check out my program, the Relationship Detox. This is where women are able to do all of that. They're able to unpack, they're able to understand what in the world just hit me, what was I dealing with. They're able to understand, how they got there. And they're also able to understand what are the shifts that I need to make in myself personally, because healing is not really just about understanding who they are. That's just a part of it. It's even more important to understand who you were when you got into the relationship, who you became while you were in the relationship, right? Who you carried on to be after the relationship, and who do you now need to become in order to have that peace again, in order to have that confidence again, in order to make sure that when you start a new relationship, maybe you don't want to start it right now, I get it, but at some point, how do I feel confident and comfortable that I'm going to be the healthy version of myself again, and I'm going to now attract healthy people into my life? So if that is something that is important to you, I invite you to click the link in the description box below to check out the Relationship Detox program, or you can go to the relationshipdetox.co. Have a blessed day, and I'll see you in the next episode.